Am I okay on the headset? Are the levels good? Or
I think
am I
so.
better off without that? Do you want me
Yeah.
to try it without, just to see what
Well,
works best for you?
it could be false advertising because in the thumbnail for this, it's a picture of you with headphones on, and so if you don't have them, I think people will feel scammed, and they will conclude that Dash is therefore a scam, and we don't want that. No one profits from that. Maybe Fluffy
Yeah,
Pony, but whatever.
it's quite possible, isn't it?
Yes, of course. Yeah, so we're streaming now. Let's see if how long it takes for people to start joining.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah,
Is my stream a bit?
it
Is
always
it a bit?
does this at the beginning. There we go. It just
Right. Okay.
every time I start streaming, there's always someone that just starts, you know, it goes in and out. Oh, it looks like we have 2 people watching on YouTube. Hey everyone.
Hey, people.
Yeah, just wait a little longer, get more people to join the stream, and then we'll go do our thing.
Yeah.
Especially because I got to wait for the Odysee thing to actually start kicking in, because that's the one where one link transfers from podcasts and stuff. I don't know why I decided to do back-to-back podcasts on a Friday.
You've done a double header, mate.
Yes, a double header
Yeah.
twice a month. Once a month, it's just the single other one. But the double header ones, I guess it helps my schedule because, Friday I just, you know,
You got a Friday off.
well, yeah. So Friday I get to, Friday's like the big busy day, but like, it helps to not have to be like, oh, what other day do I have to figure out? It helps to add a routine, but then you have to sort of juggle between the two different things. Sequel says that audio is good, or the Odysee is good, I should say. So it's good to know. So, hey, everyone, we're going to have a great show today. Let me just run this intro graphic. We'll get right into it. Yeah, so hey everyone, happy Friday again. Hopefully most of you watched the last show too, so we should be seeing you again. But if not, some people just tuned in for the Dashy stuff, so that's good. I am joined by the incomparable Walter / Mike Lewis of the Dash Investment Foundation. How's it going, man?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much for inviting me on, Joel.
Yes, well, no problem. It's one of those things where there's a few good things going on. There's a lot of good things going on in the Dash world, of course, but there's a few sort of new stars of the show. Everyone's talking about a bunch of things, and a lot of those things are tied to the Dash Investment Foundation and what is done. And then there's been a lot of drama in the past under previous administrations, as it were, and then there's like the new resurgent one that's a lot more, I guess, calm, and then there's announcements, and then there's criticism of announcements, and there's just a lot of like stuff. And so I don't know, you're the hot girl at the dance tonight, everyone's talking about you, even if it's talking shit.
Fantastic. Well, hopefully I can answer some questions, and yeah, hopefully we can work through all the stuff that's been going on the last year or so at the diff, and all the good and the bad and the ugly and everything in between. So
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
So everyone let me know also if the audio levels are good. I think mine are usually good. I have an extra 10 decibels on Mike's microphone just in case. So
Right, well,
it all
I've got to
should
turn this up now.
it all should be good. But just let me know if it doesn't. So let me just start with, I just got one from MGTOW or MGTOW, whatever that means. It's like probably like a Mt. Gox type managed gathering online. Wow, like Mt. Gox but for Doge.
I was just about to say it sounds a bit doji.
Mount Doge. Just got a question. Says, can I ask a question? And but wait, before I say this is the first freebie, right? I'm paywalling Mike. You go to cointr.e/the desert lakes. You leave a little donation, probably in Dash, but it can be other things. And I will pop that out on the screen. Or if you're watching an Odysee, you can just, when you leave your comment, click the little credit button next to it and then add a little thing like a hyper chat. But anyway, I'm giving a freebie right now before we get into the other ones. And Hilawi says audio is just fine. Okay, good. Can I ask a question that they have probably been asked a million times and really hate? Yes, you may. How do they respond to the notion that the Dash Investment Foundation adds a layer of centralization to Dash?
It's a good question. I think there's trade-offs in everything.
Mm-hmm.
The same argument could be made with DCG. At the end of the day, the network is decentralized, and the network has the power, and that, to my mind, is decentralization in action. It's decentralized. And that's the most important thing, because the systems that we're fighting against, the centralized systems that we are fighting against, don't have that. They are controlled by a very few, and therein lies the difference. I think the key to success for any crypto project and network is to be decentralized, truly decentralized, but with some sort of centralized autonomy down the chain, because down the structural chain of the entity, because without that, it's very difficult to get stuff done and get it done efficiently. in an environment where you're competing against centralized entities that are by definition a lot quicker at making decisions, a lot quicker at allocating resources and capital in order to achieve the same ends. And when you're competing in an environment where you are trying to be digital cash, and when you have centralized entities providing a equivalent digital cash service, it's just not decentralized, then you're at an inherent disadvantage straight away in terms of getting a product to market that is equal and or better than centralized alternatives. So yeah, going back to the original point, the trade-off with entities or DFOs, Dash funded organizations, as I think, as I've called them ever since we've had a treasury, I think.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Dash funded organizations, they do involve a certain level of delegation of doing things, control, in terms of letting an entity get on with doing what the network pays them to do, but with that element, with that control still resting ultimately with the network, be it as a shareholder directly, or be it as via some sort of trust mechanism where we elect representatives of the network to represent us and to hold these organizations to account. So yeah, in answer to your question, I agree that that it does seem kind of what's the word? It does seem a little incongruous to have a decentralized network with lots of little centralized, well, not lots of little, DCG is quite big, and the DIF's growing quite quickly, and there's lots of other Dash funded organizations, and they're all growing rapidly at the moment. Yeah, it does seem a bit incongruous to have a decentralized network with lots of centralized Dash funded organizations working on behalf of the network, but that's just the way. That's the only way I see the mission and our aims and objectives being met. I don't think we can leave it to laissez-faire and just let chance make that happen. We've already seen that doesn't work.
Yeah, it's a very fascinating topic, and I feel like something I should chime on this thing too is the free market is a collection of fierce competition between wholly centralized entities. Because if you're a sole proprietorship business, you are the dictator of your little world. And the free market is full of those kinds of things. They all compete against each other, and that's what causes, a monopoly system doesn't work out that well. But if you have a bunch of micro things, they're all fighting against each other, they're all struggling, and then the best centralized ideas make it to the top, because a the more people involved in making a decision, the less efficient that decision making will be, and the more variability gets filtered out, which is another way of calling it innovation. The more innovation gets filtered out. But on the other hand, if one person's making all those decisions, they can go horribly wrong, and then the whole thing collapses. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
it's this basically what we're trying to do is have the best of both worlds, where things that are big and can affect the entire Dash ecosystem should require a lot of input. Like, for example, with the diff, should the diff be funded at all? Should do stuff
Yeah.
on Dash's behalf? That is definitely something we want 4,500 or so individual decision-making units to give their input on, even though,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and then the people involved with it, of course, the diff is not a entirely centralized organization in that there's directors. So you're not the king of the diff as much as I think you do all right. You're not the king of the diff. But then you have, let's just say,
I'm just a girl at the dance.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying is then over time, the problem with the diff, I would say, that is only a temporary problem necessarily. Like, I don't think it's necessarily a problem because there's complete decentralized oversight of what is a single group making decisions together, with just a few people making decisions. The thing is, in a perfect world, Dash has like a $1 trillion market cap or something, and then there's several of these funds with slightly different aims and missions and stuff, but similar-ish structures. Anyone can spin one up, and there's a few different ones that are all competing. And if the original diff is not working as well, then they could lose their funding versus the other one, and then you have the competition. So that's kind of how I see the structure, laying out.
That's how the competitive landscape should evolve over time. Yeah, definitely. That's how I envisage it. I think there should be multiple Dash-funded organizations that compete with each other for resources ultimately. At the same stretch, we don't want to waste precious treasury resources. I think that's probably part of the reason why this kind of competitiveness hasn't evolved yet out of the ecosystem. But I sure see it happening in the future as the network grows and as the treasury funding available grows. It's going to invite that competition. I hope and I expect. And I think it will.
Yeah. So here's that sort of rolls into the next little question. So there were a few questions from the community directly, and probably because I posted this announcement way too late last night, and people were like, "Get on Friday" and stuff. So it's all my fault. But I came up with a few that I'm going to go through. And as always, now that you didn't ask ahead of time, now there's the paywall behind the questions. Or if we run into not enough stuff to talk about and too much time, then I'll start throwing out freebies. But don't wait for it. If you have some pressing, get it out there in a finance sort of a way. But about the diff's mission and drive, its main focus is: does the diff prioritize more direct profit, i.e., making an investment that then becomes more valuable over time and therefore creates profit, or that profits Dash as a whole in the ecosystem, but the actual diff itself may not make as much money or may even lose money on an investment as far as just the actual thing, even though the rest of the ecosystem profits? Which is the main driver of the diff's focus?
Like any answer to any question like this, the answer is not simple.
Of course.
You ask 6 different supervisors, and you're probably going to get 6 different answers. But from my perspective, I think that there is a balance that needs to be struck there. The mission statement and the vision that we've published clearly states that our aim is to fulfill both of those objectives. If the aim was purely profit motive, and we would purely look at investments regardless of whether it's cryptocurrency or Dash specific or anything else, and that would be legitimate if that's what the network wanted to fund. And there could be another Dash investment foundation that has that that vision and mission statement from the outset, and it sets itself up and comes to the network for funds, and the network may well vote for that and seed that. But the mission and vision that the DIF has is to do both. It's to invest in what we hope to be profit-making enterprises that are there for the specific purpose of growing the use of digital currencies, specifically Dash. And it's not mutually exclusive, but any investment that we make, we do have to look at ourselves as the DIF and say, yeah, we can invest in this, and it could be the best pitch deck in the world. It could have number go up left to right on every single slide.
Could be a big old bag of Doge.
It could be, it could be on paper, it could be the best investment you could ever see. And you're looking at it going, this is a 10 bagger. This is insane. This is a unicorn investment. This thing's going places. But you still have to look at that as a diff, the diff, and say, but what's in it for Dash? And if the diff, and this is just my opinion, but if the diff as a collective cannot look at that investment, no matter how good as it is, and hand on heart say, there's something in it for us. It may not be clear. It may not be like written in a contract. It may not be guaranteed. But if there's a partnership there, and if there's something to work on, and it gets Dash talked about and at the table, and integrated as partner in a company, then we have to look at that and go, that benefit is well worth it. But if it doesn't have anything in it for Dash, then we can't just invest in it because it's a great business and it's going to make lots of money. So in answer to your question, I don't think we should be investing in companies that have no benefit to Dash just because we think that they're going to be unicorn companies and they're going to be the next Google. Yeah, that's just my opinion. But I think there is a balance to be struck there, and I think the diff, on the whole, is doing a pretty good job with the investments so far that we've made. The CradePay is a good example. Ready Raider, Odysee, Dash Retail, even Valkyrie. These are all things that we believe are going to be majorly beneficial to the growth of Dash, the Dash network in the crypto ecosystem over time. And that's what we believe. How that pans out, we just won't know for years probably on many of them. But that's our ethos, that's our mission and vision, and that's what we're working on. There's a lot of stuff still to be announced, but all the announcements that are coming out, there's a stream of them. It's going to be a really busy year. All of them have that balance. So in answer to that question, what do we prioritize more? The answer is we're prioritizing stuff that is going to be beneficial to Dash and helps get that Dash share of mind in the crypto space and out there with business partners and stuff like that. We want companies that are going to be the next Coinbase or the next Google in the space or the next whatever, the next big exchange. We want them to be thinking about Dash whenever they're looking at integrating and creating products, whether that be integrating them onto their platforms as just as a cryptocurrency, or integrating things that we might be building on our second layer that are going to be quite exciting in the future. So that's the long and short of it, really. We are not just investing for profit, but at the same stretch, we can't just write checks.
Yeah, you do need profit.
We need to make sure that these companies are actually going to create value that's what we're looking for, and the two and the two kind of come hand in hand. If they are creating lots of value as a partner, as a business, then we're going to benefit anyway. And if they benefit us by integrating us and using Dash to, some companies that we're investing in, they may end up using Dash to build on to build their products on in the future. That's pretty good stuff. So yeah, there are direct benefits, i.e. we're a shareholder and we stand to benefit and capture some of that value as those businesses are successful. But we're also making sure Dash gets that share of mind. Yeah, and gets out there.
So on that subject, we're talking about you do want to ensure profit or ROI, return on investment. And how are you measuring ROI at this point? And obviously, if say, okay, you throw a bunch of money into, let's say, CrayPay. 3 months from now, have you made $1 million? Like, that might be a little bit of a short time frame, you know what I'm saying? But basically, what do you use to judge whether or not an investment has been a worthwhile one? And then over what time frame does it take before you start to make those judgments?
I think it's subjective to a degree. There's two parts to this. The first part is the financials. Is the business continuing to grow in the way that it was when we first made the investment? So is the business continuing to grow at the same rate and or better than when we first invested in them? If the answer to that is yes, then that's a good metric that we can use to report back to the network, and the network will mainly see that on the growth on the balance sheet. These a lot of companies that we've invested in, they will be going for further funding rounds in the future, I'm sure. We hope they will be, because that shows that they're growing as companies and that they have a successful product or services that are growing values. So yeah, hopefully what we'll see is the shareholder reports that we get will show that these businesses are continuing to grow, continuing to do well, continuing to expand. That's the first thing we will look at. The second thing we'll look at is the valuations. We expect, as I said, that some of these companies, they're going to go for further funding rounds at some point, as and when those funding rounds are successful and they are signed, sealed, and delivered. We will then have an updated valuation on our equity stake.
Yeah.
And we will make that public on our balance sheet. So as and when that happens. Likewise, we'll also report if a company or an investment doesn't work out, and if that company doesn't work out for any reason, we would obviously write that down and write that off. But what we expect to see is over time, you'll be seeing the balance sheet grow. You'll be seeing the carrying value of the investments on the balance sheet grow. Hopefully, year by year. That's the kind of time frame we should be looking at on those. We're not going to be seeing quarter on quarter multiples in terms of growth. That's just not how it works. But yeah, I think those are the two main quantitative ways that we will measure our return on investment. And then there's the qualitative side of things, which is how is it benefiting Dash? Because that's the second part of our that's the second piece of the pie, so to speak. There's two parts to it. First one, is it a successful enterprise? Is it adding value? Is it making money? Second element, is Dash winning as a result? And that is more subjective, unfortunately. There's ways we can do that. We can get figures from, depending on the type of partner or type of investment we've made. We might be privy to data on how well Dash is performing as a currency in relation to their business and their metrics. So we might be able to gain some access on that. But other than that, it's going to be, how's if the business is growing and it's got Dash integrated, yeah, we want to see more transactions. We want to see more capital flowing into the space, and we want to see more capital flowing into Dash. And those are the sorts of things that we'd be looking at in terms of return on investment. Is like CraigPay is a good example. If the CraigPay, if the Dash Direct app is successful and we start seeing lots of traction with it in the US, that's an obvious way of measuring the success of that investment. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes in particular in the US over the coming 12 months to 2 years. We are not going to be making any decisions on how we think our return on investments are going based on monthly data and things like that. We may see encouraging signs early on with a number of our investments, and we already are seeing some encouraging signs. But the bottom line is these investments are long term. You cannot judge the performance of them based on monthly performance. Yeah. It's going to be year by year, and hopefully as the years go by, we will be able to report good things overall.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, that speaks to the scope and scale, that this isn't just like we bought some stuff and next month it works out. It's like with scope, with scale, obviously it takes time for things to happen, which kind of brings to the next thing, which is I've heard this discussed a few different times. Like, you always want to hear about, sometimes the haters and the critics do inform a lot of your knowledge on things because they pose a question that demands an answer. And I've heard a lot of like some criticism, or some, I don't even say criticism, but just like, grouchiness, just general grouchiness about like, well,
that doesn't sound like.
No, it doesn't sound like any crypto community ever. Never.
No, that doesn't happen in crypto.
Yeah, but so I see some general grouchiness saying stuff like, oh, what are we supposed to get excited about this? This is like a nothing. This is just a new fledgling company. What about like Coinbase and stuff? What about big ones? And then, no one's ever heard of this. Valkyrie, what's that? Like that kind of like stuff. Looking that gift horse in the mouth. And then, of course, the response to that is, well, we're making what we believe to be effective investments and stuff, but also ones that are within our current scope of potential operations. That basically, if we had if this was a huge hedge fund, because the world's first decentralized hedge fund, maybe it's amazing, but it's not huge yet. If we had a huge amount of money, then we would be able to actually start to make splashes and start doing things that you won't actually start complaining about. So obviously it's a very open-ended sort of a question. It's very subjective, but basically how much money would the diff require to operate at what could be considered as a decently effective level where people don't whine about how this announcement's like a nothing burger, to borrow one of Mark Mason's famous quotes.
Nothing burger. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I can give you a number.
Sure.
That you would like. That I think is where the diff's balance sheet needs to be in order to really start gaining some traction in the space, and I believe that number is north of 10 million US dollars. I think the diff as an entity with assets under management of that scale and above, it becomes a whole different ball game in terms of what we can do to move the needle for Dash, and that's what I've always believed from day one. I was one of the founding supervisors of the diff, and I still believe that today, that we to really move the needle in the space, we to the extent where people, your comments about whining about nothing burger announcements and things, they're the sorts of people who are kind of like, they expect you to have invested in Kraken's latest round. Why haven't we just bought 10% of Kraken or whatever? That's just not. We're just not there.
Why haven't we
If the
bought
diff
our own
existed,
Roger Ver
if
for
the
crying out
yeah,
loud?
if the diff existed 5 or 6 years ago, we could have been having those announcements. The space was very different back then, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff around 5 or 6 years ago that yeah, the diff could have probably put the sorts of money it has now into, and hey, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but yeah, there's loads of stuff out there that would be many multiples of what it was back then. Even these are well-known names in crypto. So
Yeah, of course.
So the bottom line is, it's okay saying, what about this nothing burger announcement, blah 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 blah, but that might seem like the case now with a lot of the stuff we're doing, but I think we should be judged on the work we're doing today. Like I said before, about where we are 2, 3, 5 years out from now. Are these investments still nothing burger announcements, or have we just bought a meaningful equity stake in what could be a household name in 5 or 10 years time? And therein lies the difficulty with all of this stuff. Everything's easy when you look through the rearview mirror.
Of course.
But we're not. We're trying to do this, and we're trying to pick investment opportunities that we think have the best chance of fulfilling our mandate, fulfilling our vision and mission. And I think that at the level we're at now, where we are literally, with respect, we're handling sums of money that are bigger entities in the space. They're not going to get out of bed to talk to you for that kind of money. I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's just not.
What's
it's not
funny
happening.
about your number? I remember in December of 2017, at the peak of the Treasury, the monthly Treasury was 10 million for a brief shining moment of time, and it's like,
if the diff existed back then,
you just
would have
like,
been able to make it.
and then you'd be playing with some real stuff. And so,
Yeah.
how far is the diff towards that, I guess, goal, or that would be nice if number? And what is a kind of a path to that look like? As in, like, a projected thing. Like, for example, you say, all right, we intend to take a round or a request. Let's just make that clear. It's not take, it's a request. Request this much of the Treasury every single month, and the way markets could be moving the price of this. So therefore, it's realistic to assume that we would able to be playing with this, the 8-figure figure within a certain amount of time. Obviously, you cannot predict these things, but just, yeah. So first off, how far, and then how long?
We have all the same information available to us as everybody else with regards to the future price of Dash and the amount of Treasury budget available.
Yeah.
And that information, that's nothing basically. Nobody knows what the future holds, and we cannot really do anything about that, or try and second guess it, or even change it. So we just have to work with what we have. And what we have at the moment is a healthy amount of funding from the network, a very healthy amount of funding from the network, in order to deploy into investments with partners that we believe are going to substantially grow the value of their businesses and Dash over time. And we're starting small relatively. We are investing in lots of interesting stuff that we think is exciting, and stuff that we think will be beneficial to Dash. But these are smaller companies. They are startup stroke seed level investments. relatively. We're talking $1 million companies, not $100 million companies or $200 million or $1 billion companies, and yeah, and with that comes the fact that we cut our cloth accordingly. We cannot, as I said, we cannot look to invest 10, 20 million in some of the bigger opportunities out there. That's just the reality of it. But that doesn't mean we cannot be effective, and we cannot invest in smaller companies that have got really, really good fundamentals and really good products and really good services that we think could be leaders in their space or in their region or in their class. So yeah, all of the companies that are now dominant in the crypto space all started somewhere. And what we're in the business of doing right now is finding some of the hopefully some of the really successful companies out there over the next 5 years. And if we can do that with small investments of 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 at this stage, that's great. And I just want to make clear at this level, at this point, that not all of the companies that we're investing in just want the money. They don't want. It's not just about the money. It's about building a partnership with Dash. The money and the investments just to kind of, it's just putting a ring on it, really. They don't necessarily want us to fill the bulk of their round, their equity round or whatever. They just want us to be part of their success, just like we want them to be part of Dash's success. And that's another thing that we hope the network realizes with the diff, is that we're building relationships, and we're building partnerships with what we hope to be very, very successful new generation of businesses. They're going to be building their businesses, and these are entrepreneurs, and they're going to be building their new businesses, disruptive businesses, businesses that are disrupting traditional models. And yeah, we fully expect that some of these are going to dominate their sectors within 5 or 10 years. And if they're able to build their businesses on Dash or using Dash or in some way with Dash, then everybody wins, don't they? And that's what it's about. So what does the diff need realistically in order to make a big impact now in terms of headlines, for one of the better word, because that's what you're kind of referring to with the nothing burger statement.
Yeah, of course.
People want to see big headlines, and the reality is that investing isn't like that. Some of the best investments in the world, you don't hear about them until they're already big, and that's not going to work for Dash, because you need to get in the ground floor, and you need to get in at the bottom level, and that's what we're doing at the diff. We're focusing with the resources we've got to get a seat at the table, to get influence, and to find partners that they can build their businesses, and they can disrupt their sectors, and that they can use Dash in the process. And I think that's really exciting. That's the key takeaway from that, is it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter what we get from the Treasury, or it really doesn't matter what we think we can do with the Treasury money. It is what it is. We don't control that. We just got to work with what we've got. And if it's $400,000 a month, fantastic, amazing. If it's $4 million, even better, because we can do 10 times as much cool stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because generally speaking, I've been pretty level-headed throughout the last 8 years of up and downs in the markets. It's just like, it is what it is. I'll, have realistic expectations. One thing that I do remember, I wrote one op-ed that was a little dreamy, right? That in retrospect seems a little it turned out to be unrealistic. All which was how the growth, the virtuous cycle of the DAO. That the more Dash owns, the higher it goes in value, the more things it owns, which therefore drive it further up in value, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and just infinite growth. You know, and then it turns out that it turns out that it didn't necessarily happen, at least not after that cycle. A lot of the money that Dash threw into stuff just did not end up keeping it in this perpetual upness spot. And a lot of that could probably, some of that is just like, yeah, but you can't just like own everything. It doesn't work. It's not that simple. But the other thing is Dash didn't own anything really. Dash just like threw money at people and had, I guess, what one could call strongly voiced wishful thinking as far as what that money would get them. And it just turns out that what that money would get them is dumped. Just dump it on the market, get whatever they just, the gravy train. So,
Yeah.
and especially in reference to a lot of stuff. And so I can name off quite a few companies that Dash has invested in that has gotten, in some way, shape, or form, burned by. Like, for example, we could always talk about the boys from Cork, right? The what was it even called again?
Festi.
Yeah, Festi, and then what was the other one before that?
Opera Incubator.
Yeah, all those people.
Yeah.
Bit something.
Bitcard.
Bitcard. Yeah, the Bitcard. I remember all the puns I made about that name. But so all those people got a lot of money from Dash, and then Dash got nothing. As far as I know, the company did not end up panning out very well, but I have not, admittedly, not looked into it super closely lately. That's one. Then, of course, you get the Kuvakashes of the world, which, of course, is quite the internal community source subject / meme at this point. However, there allegedly is a company associated with that, and they allegedly recently dropped Dash when they got funded to do this stuff a long time ago. And of course, no one really cares because no one's really using it. They've been very adversarial for a long time, recently especially. So no one really cares. But then there's that. And then you get to like paying for the BitGo integration type thing, which I don't know how much, like, if they decide to de-integrate Dash, is something happen? What about a business partnership with Wirex, for example? What about you just start naming things over and over and over again? And of course, the biggest sore subject that people have is Alt36, I think. And it's funny because Alt36 is posting a lot of stuff on Instagram today. It appears that they're doing business. It appears that they're doing stuff. I have no idea what Dash's relationship with that is. But like a lot of these past things have turned out to be, failed project or scams or some mix of the both. Something like Alt36, while it was going through, ended up being, you could see the lack of communication where they understood that they were receiving a grant from the DAO. And the DAO thought that they were basically owned the company entirely, almost. Like, there was some very just crossed wires.
Crossed wires.
Yeah. So basically, one thing that has been discussed is, if the diff invests in stuff, the diff is a legal entity that can actually make legally binding contracts and legally own equity and stuff like that. And so all this stuff is going to be, it's going to be different. It might not all be over and completely different, but it will be different. Now, all that being said, what kinds of stipulations can be made with the diff or have been made with the diff for integrations and stuff that, or certain preferential treatment of Dash or just good treatment, even if it's not preferential? What kinds of things are in place or have been put in place? What level of security can that kind of guarantee? Like, for example, say Crepe, right? Right now, Crepe gets a bunch of money, or a bit of money, depending on wherever, and then makes a Dash branded app that lets people go do this stuff, and then a year they decide to, like, I don't know what the pun coin of the day, maybe they decide to add Dogecoin there, and then in 5 more years they just eventually drop Dash because like, what is in place to just what contractually is in place in these kinds of things, or what can be put in place?
Okay, 2 parts to that question. The first part of the answer is more generic, and then you I believe you asked something specifically relating to CRAPE. So the first part of that I'll just tackle by talking about things we can do as an entity. And the answer to that is quite simple. We can write whatever we want into a contract, frankly.
As long as they sign it.
Within reason, as long as it's not unreasonable, but to the degree where it's legally unreasonable and could be challenged in a jurisdiction. But you can't have something onerous, for example. But we're talking about things that fall well out of scope in that regard. But for the purposes of answering the question, the diff can stipulate and can contractually obligate an investment partner to do whatever it wishes within reason. Whether that partner takes up that offer is another matter. What we try to do, or what we do, depending on a case-by-case basis, is discuss how we can mutually benefit each other. Because let's go back to what I mentioned earlier on in the podcast about how it's not just about the money and the investment and the shareholding.
It's about the partnership of mutual growth.
You've got to look at the bigger picture. So a lot of our partners that have been announced and are yet to be announced, they're betting on Dash as much as we're betting on them, and yeah, they of course they want to see us both grow. So yeah, we can invest a certain amount, but ultimately, if we're in an investment round, all of the investment partners have to have the same terms. So there's two elements to this. There's the terms of the investment round. If it's a round, if we're just a sole investor, then we can name whatever terms we like within reason. But the bottom line is that from an investment point of view, they have to be equitable and they have to be reasonable. Otherwise, it will compromise that company when it goes for future equity rounds and wants to grow further. Because if imagine a hedge funds or venture capital come in and say, "Oh, we really want to buy into this company," and they say, "Oh yeah, but yeah, when we did the last round, we got in our contract that we can only use Dash." And we're not allowed to use any other cryptocurrency because that's what Dash wanted in return for the money. So then it really does hamper and compromise the value proposition there for future investors. So we have to be really careful about putting anything contractual in at that level when it comes to the investments we look at. So that leads me on to the specifics around CRAPE, because I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah. So the way we did it with the CRAPE deal is we have an investment contract. We have an investment contract with CRAPE, and we have a shares for equity, for one of a better word. We've invested in that company, and that's the deal. But contingent upon us signing that deal at the diff, we had CRAPE sign a contract with Dash Core Group Inc. in the US for a 3-year deal to build, manage, and maintain the Dash Direct app. And that agreement is between Dash Core Inc. And CRAPE. So if CRAPE, if there is a contractual dispute there, it will be between CRAPE and Dash Core Inc. Obviously, I do not see for 1 minute there being a contractual issue, but that's the nature of how that deal is set up. So the diff holds the equity, and we have bought the equity on condition of that contract being signed with DCG. So and that's how that deal struck. So And every deal is going to be different. Every partnership and every integration is going to be different. But what you can see there is a really good example of all of the moving parts of Dash and all of the Dash-funded organizations working collectively together in order to make things happen for Dash as a whole. And that's how we envisage it working on the most part in the future. You know, you talked about how we've been burned in the past, and you listed off some classic names there, all of which I remember, and all of which I wake up in a cold sweat now and again, thinking, we spent how much on that?
Yeah, it's unfortunately true.
And we can lament on it all we like, but the bottom line is that if we don't learn from our mistakes of the past, we're deemed to repeat them. And the sort of thing that I've just example I've just given there is an example of how we fix that problem, how Dash has fixed that problem. We have the Dash Investment Foundation that can take an equity stake and buy in and extract value from that product, from that business, if it's successful. And then we have other entities like Dash Core Grouping who can sign integration contracts and partnership contracts in order to ensure that operationally what we want to achieve from this partnership can be executed successfully. And that goes for any other Dash funded organization out there. If any of the others came to us with, or any other deal came together, or anything else, other opportunity came to us, or we found another opportunity where we could pull in resources from all of the different Dash entities to construct a deal, then that's how we will do things, and that's how we prefer to do things, and that's the kind of the model in a way. So in answer to the question, how are we going to stop repeating or seeing the same things happen as in the past? We can never stop outright scams, and we can never totally remove any downside to anything that we invest in, but we can minimize the risks, and we can, using contracts and using all the tools at the House disposal in order to minimize the downside on these things. And I think CrayPay is a great example of that. CrayPay are very, very unlikely to not fulfill on that 3-year deal. I can't see any reason why they would. We're a shareholder now. They're already accountable to the diff on that level. So yeah, I don't see any issues there.
Yeah, which is a good thing to happen, especially when you have you have it in writing, right? And it's not exactly you can just back out that easily. But also, if someone's like a major shareholder, there should be some sort of tandem thing. But so speaking of like the business integration and contract type side, and also with the context of moving from what do they call it, the nothing burger to the grand pizza, or what? I gotta find an expression for like the opposite, a food related item that's not a nothing burger, that's like it's an everything burger. And so what is it, from the nothing burger to an everything pizza? Well, we'll just go with that one
something
for now.
like that. Yeah,
We'll just go with that from now. Something that people a sore subject in the Dash world has been how, I don't know how much of a conspiracy, is the anti-Dash conspiracy, which, let's hit Occam's razor and not be too kooky on this podcast, as it were. Probably what happened is Dash flew under the radar for a lot of people because of Dash's own, I guess, anemic marketing and outreach kind of efforts. Fair enough, right? Fair criticism. And because of that, a lot of these crypto companies got filled with bag holders of other projects that got in early. And then all of a sudden Dash comes out. Dash is a competitive threat possibly, or just a competitor,
Mm-hmm.
right, to their bags. And so they'd rather not, either for anti-competitive reasons or just for, they just aren't a fan of it to begin with, and they just hasn't been a lot of noise from the Dash community, whatever. Teens tends to be more excluded on a lot of stuff. Like, of course, the longest running longest running annoying thing was Coinbase. When the ever loving, what is Coinbase going to add Dash? It was just such a slap in the face that it hadn't, and then it did eventually, and it was great. And now, the reason I pay my jiu-jitsu instructor in Dash, and he uses Coinbase to cash out. It's fantastic. So
Yeah.
now there's a couple of problems, a couple of Coinbase related things. Coinbase is still one of the monster players in the field, and you kind of need to have a seat at that table in order to do well in the U.S. markets, at least, which is a big market,
Mm-hmm.
And the couple sore subjects still with Coinbase. The good part of Coinbase is they say they accept Dash transactions after 2 confirmations. Multiple people have reported it's now down to 1, even though they've not updated their documentation, which I'd rather have it the other way around, right? So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. I would call that preferential treatment of Dash, even though I don't think it is, just because, it's a special feature that's actually being highlighted in some real UX way. Now, all this rambling to say, people talk about a lot of projects are on Coinbase Earn, which Coinbase pays you to be educated on a subject. And the project pays Coinbase, a metric arseload of money to basically do this kind of thing. But the biggest sore subject is, or I'm not sure if it's biggest, but equally big, is Coinbase Commerce. That only has a few coins enabled, one of which is not Dash. And in fact, if you are watching right now on Odysee, which a few of you are, if you want to get library credits to tip in a hyper chat here, you can't do it through Dash. You have to, because it uses a Coinbase Commerce plugin on the site, you have to go switch your Dash for Bitcoin Cash, for example, or Litecoin or whatever, and then you have to go buy the credits and go in there, which is why you have the Cointree thing where you can just go skip around that whole thing. But again, that's like a sore spot, because what are we going to integrate for our business? Oh, let's do Coinbase Commerce. Oh, sorry, no Dash. And I've had that happen before. So people have talked about this. And of course, BitPay is a huge sore thing too, because they accept everything except Dash. Annoys me. Anyway, so what are the prospects of the diff doing something like making some sort of an investment in Coinbase that then would get Dash on either Coinbase Earn, Coinbase Commerce, or potentially both? Or do they just want donations, or they don't want actual investments from crypto projects? So anyway, just what about all that stuff?
Okay, I'll try and deconstruct it into, because I think there's 2 or 3 separate threads on that you've covered there. So the first thing is Coinbase don't want or need investment. They've just IPO'd.
Yeah.
And they
don't want our pennies.
They're all good on that side of things.
They don't want our pennies.
I don't. If we could wave them, we could wave $1 billion at them. They don't give a flying.
Yeah, they don't give a flying Dutchman. That's for sure.
No, of course not. So that really kind of hampers any effect that we could have on to do anything on that side of things with regards to diff. So that's the first part of that covered. Really, we are the Dash Investment Foundation. We make investments. The Coinbase Earn thing that's not an investment program. We wouldn't be investing in Coinbase, so we're limited as to what we can do with that kind of stuff. We can encourage the submission of a proposal to the network in order to fund such an activity. Maybe somebody at the incubator would like to take that on. Maybe a bounty could be made for it. I don't know, but in simple answer to the first part of that, the prospects of the diff. The prospect of the diff doing anything with regards to Coinbase Earn is, yeah, it wouldn't come under our scope of activities anyway, because it's not an investment opportunity, and it's and that's the thing, you see. It's the Dash Investment Foundation. Yes, we're looking for partnerships, and yes, we're looking for strategic partners, and we're looking to invest in stuff that can grow products and services around the Dash ecosystem. So I get that angle. Why can't we just pay Coinbase to do things for us? But yeah, at the end of the day, that wouldn't be within our mandate, within our goals and vision. That would take a grant from the Treasury to do that specifically. With regards to Coinbase Commerce, my understanding is that, and again, it's probably something that somebody biz dev over in DCG would be able to give more flavor to. But again, it's not something that the diff can really has any leverage to take action on. We're very limited as to what we could do there. We can, we might be able to, use some of our connections and or put the right people in touch with the right people to have discussions, but it's really not for the diff to negotiate that kind of stuff. It falls outside of the diff scope, really. My understanding is the Coinbase Commerce issue is a custody issue, and until Dash is supported on the back end custody provider, Coinbase, then I believe, please don't hold me to this, anybody watching this. It's just my uninformed view on the situation. Is I believe a lot of the issues we have with integrations are due to custody fundamentally, and I believe BizDev are working hard on that, and there are a lot of people at Dash who collectively are working hard to try and unblock these roadblocks. So, and that kind of spills over into your comment about BitPay as well. BitPay, same fundamental problem, I think, is it just goes down to custody. It's what we've seen at the diff, especially with some of our investment partners, all roads kind of lead back to custody issues, and the fact that large companies and or businesses that want to adopt cryptocurrency, they're not going to use Dash software. They want to use third-party proprietary custody solutions from big partners, and there are a few of them in the space, and they all have varying degrees of support for Dash. And unfortunately, if you have a big player that is using a custody provider that doesn't support Dash, or certainly doesn't support Dash to the level that's required, then it hits a roadblock, and it hits a stumbling block, and therein lies a lot of the root cause of a lot of the issues that come up like that, and they're being worked on. They're being worked on hard, and I fully expect that a lot of these will be worked through in the next 6 to 12 months. But as the space evolves, it's not that these companies, it's not a conspiracy. It's not that these custody providers want or don't want to integrate Dash. It's just that they have to prioritize their business needs as well. And, and if you're competing against, if you're all in competition for this custody space, you need to integrate the biggest projects, and you need to integrate them the quickest. And they only have so many devs, and they have to pick and choose what they work on. So a lot of the custody providers have Dash on their roadmap, or have Dash kind of
on their eyes.
It's on the to-do list. It's on the to-do
list.
but then something comes in that somebody decides is a bit more important, and Dash goes down one,
Yeah, Elon
and
tweets and Dash goes down one.
yeah. So
As it
what I'm
turns
trying to
out.
say is, what I'm trying to say is that I don't believe there is a conspiracy there as such against Dash. I just believe that yeah, rightly or wrongly, we just have to wait for these things to be integrated. The space is evolving so quickly, and there are only so many devs. It's very specialist work what they're doing, especially at custody. You know, these custody solutions, they are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on these things because they're securing billions and billions of dollars of value, and they have to be able to deal with institutional grade security requirements. And yeah, it all takes time. They can't just build it overnight. And every crypto that they support, they have to spend countless thousands of dev hours on. So yeah, unfortunately, Dash just isn't at the top of the list. I'm sorry to say, and that's why things can seem like they're two steps forward, one step back all the time when it comes to Dash integrations.
Yeah, and I guess that's a part of when the diff starts investing in these, smaller companies. Not to say nothing burger again, even though that's a funny term, but the smaller companies on the way up as Dash gets higher up on the priority list for when they grow up. And
Yeah.
on the other hand, with enough investments, enough wealth around with Dash, puts Dash at a higher level to where now all of a sudden you're getting the big people's attention. All of a sudden you aren't the girl that
Yeah.
brought you to the dance is the new hotness,
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
we did have a question about that one time throughout Super Chat, but Cointree seems to be glitching at the moment, so he typed it in Odysee, which is, "Hi Joel and Mike. Has the U.S.'s regulatory treatment of Dash been much of an obstacle for the diff in finding good opportunities recently? Cheers." One time.
The simple answer, not in my experience. I, from an investment point of view, we have not had any opportunities. We have not sourced any opportunities or come across any opportunities or been pitched any opportunities where we have not been able to follow through because of US regulatory issues. There's been no issue there. I think from, and I don't expect there to be any issue because, again, from the diff's point of view, we're looking for investments, and we've not had one potential partner say we can't have you as a shareholder because we believe it's a regulatory risk. Yeah, simple answer to that question.
Interesting. It's funny because Dash has, as far as I know, has no regulatory issues in the U.S. directly. Like, the U.S. regulating bodies have had nothing against Dash, as far as I'm aware. Now, on the other hand, U.S. enforcement agencies have been observing a few AECs or anonymity enhanced cryptocurrencies that they, strangely, again, not strange from a past branding standpoint, but strange from an actual technical standpoint, place Dash amongst these. And that causes a lot of banks and things and other groups to not want to work with Dash. And of course, then you have actual regulators, places like Japan, that do have an issue with it for similar things. So it's a little bit more of a complicated thing. As far as like the Coinbase thing, you mentioned about the custody thing, which it could be a thing and just down the list. Sorry, we need a little thing. And I've heard in reference to other things such as BitPay that there might be a problem with BitLicense in New York, that you have to get on enough BitLicense to prove something or other, and and because you don't want to just disable Dash for New York customers because New York is weird. then that could be a hang up for some of these things too. So that's just what I've heard as well.
Yeah, with regards to the bit license, my understanding, again, I'm not hugely informed on that because I'm mostly UK based, so it doesn't affect me as a user anyway, and as an investor. So yeah, but the bit license stuff, yeah, my understanding is that points make prizes, and the more trusted entities that use or integrate your cryptocurrency, then the more likely you are to get a thumbs up from whatever regulate, from the bit license people. So so again, I don't think there is anything immediately barring Dash from achieving compliance in that respect, or approval. Approval is probably a better word.
Yeah.
But again, I just think it's a matter of time. I just think these things take time, and there is only so much resource that can be thrown at these things, especially when those resources are well and truly outside of Dash, and they are generally resourced and funded via profit motive. So they're going to go for the stuff that makes them the most profit. So yeah.
Yeah. We did get a super chat that was before the last one that I read out. And so, unfortunately, with this little coin tree thing, I can't go back in time. But here we go. Will the diff get a professional and paid investment advisor? If so, would that person count as a diff supervisor that is elected annually, or would it be a separate appointment? Also, if this is in the plans, when about would you see this happening? Thank you, Anonymous, for the donation. What do you think, Mike?
Okay, first part to that question, first part of the answer would be yes, we absolutely do see and envisage the diff having a team of managers, team of fund managers. Why not?
Yeah.
I think that's how it was originally envisaged. The only reason supervisors are so heavily involved is because we are having to bootstrap it effectively. It's just market conditions again. The price of Dash. If I think I went on record last year as saying that if Dash is below $100 for any significant length of time, then the diff is defunct. The diff would be completely ineffective. You cannot have an investment foundation without investment funds. It cannot work.
Yeah, of course.
And you have an entity that to wash its face goes through $50,000 a year in fees. Those fees don't scale up. It costs roughly $50,000 whether you've got £50,000 to manage or 50 million. There might be a few more ancillary costs and a bit more paperwork to do and a few more staff to pay, but the costs don't scale with the size of the assets under management. So what I'm trying to get at is that with Dash at $100 and below, the diff is it's pretty difficult to justify its existence, frankly. As great an idea as it is, and as powerful a solution as it is, it's difficult to justify when there's no money. I think that's obvious. But with the diff, with Dash being over $100 and above, we have runway now, and we have any hopefully ever increasing amounts of capital to deploy, and it gives us an opportunity to showcase what the diff is capable of and actually make some investments. So yeah, it's one of them. Do we want we want to be in a situation where we have at least one investment manager, maybe 10? Yeah, that'd be awesome. And if they compete and the best ones get more funding, and there's a whole structure in place to ensure competitiveness in that environment, that would be awesome. And that, of course, is the plan. And that goes back to the comment earlier in the podcast about, you asked me how much does give me a number. What does the diff need to be considered effective? Well, 10 million assets under management, we can afford, or we can justify
a lot of things.
We can justify paying an investment manager large sums of money to perform well for us. So
yeah, large sums of money to bring in even larger sums of money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and let's face it, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I had two last ones to wrap things up, but before that, I did get a hyper chat on Odysee that is not related to the diff at all. So I'll just quickly answer this really quickly.
Oh,
yes.
One thing, Joel, just before we move on.
Yes,
I didn't
absolutely.
answer the second part of that. Didn't answer the second part of that question, which is, would they act at a supervisor level or not? The answer is no. The supervisors are there, and their role is pretty well defined legally. And you don't want to change that. Investment managers would report to the directors and the supervisors, and they would be governed by the supervisor board, which would in turn be elected by the network. So that's how that structure will work. No different to the way DCG work. Ryan's employed by DCG. Ryan is a director of DCG, and Ryan is responsible to report to the shareholders, and the shareholders the trust. And the trust is run by the trust protectors, who are elected by the network. So that governance structure will stay the same whether the diff has 1 million under management or 1 billion under management.
Yeah, of course.
The only difference is organizationally how many people are working in that entity below that and doing good things for Dash.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let me answer.
Anyway, sorry,
Yes.
I just wanted to close the loop on that one.
Yeah, of course. Let me hit this technical question really quick, it's kind of interesting. Monero Amico says, is there any reason to keep Dash running on proof of work? Isn't it a good idea to switch to proof of stake, allowing staking for small holders and keeping higher profits for masternodes? So quickly, and of course, Mike, you can jump in if you want to, but first off, proof of stake does not necessarily let smaller holders stake. Like, I mean, Ethereum has like a 32 ETH entry to just be staking, and there's a lot of systems where if you have too many stakers, the whole network doesn't run well because there's too many nodes out there. And so you have to either funnel, or you do delegated proof of stake where you delegate stuff to that. So it's not necessarily as easy. Now, the thing about my personal opinion on proof of work is I can't see a good way of getting rid of it. I can't see a good replacement for some of the things that it does. For one thing, the concept of entropy, of it keeps money flowing out into the ecosystem, right? People buy machines with fiat, right? They run electricity, they have expenses, they generate Dash, and then the Dash at that point has to be sold. Some of it has to be sold for electricity or has to go out. And so it keeps kicking out more coins and spreading them out in the ecosystem, so you don't have a stale and dying ecosystem. Now, if you're just stakers, everyone who owns it already gets all the new money that gets created. And they have to sell it in order to propagate, but they don't have to sell it all because their expenses are very low necessarily, not quite like miners. So it doesn't kick it out as much. Also, even though I know mining gets centralized sometimes, especially with manufacturing, you do not, on a technical structural level, need permission of current holders of a proof of work coin to get more of the coin. You do in proof of stake because they get all the money, right? And so it's a little bit more of a complicated thing. I don't know exactly how one would solve that. And finally, there is an interesting thing on proof of work chains where the potential hash rate can be much higher than the actual hash rate. So, for example, Bitcoin Cash had this hash war thing going on, and we saw a ton of hash rate that just was not profitable to be running at one time, but was available to help secure the network against an attack in this case. And so, whereas with this purely staked security model, you have all this, you can see how much money is behind. So you have a clear target if you're going to attack it. Be like, I need this much money, or I need to target these exact nodes. Whereas with proof of work, you know what's securing the network at the moment, but there could be a whole bunch of people with their X11 miners just that aren't running it because it's not worthwhile. But if there's a need for a non-profit mode of just like to secure your investment against an attack, they could come out, and it's much harder to estimate for that. So it's an extra layer of security. That's just my whirlwind answer to this question. So do you feel compelled to answer at all, Mike? Or is that, is that good? Yeah.
No. No, I just kind of broadly aligned with you on that one. I think from what I can see, there is nothing in existence right now that can beat the levels of entropy that X11 mining provides Dash. And until such time that a consensus of devs that work on the Dash protocol can put a case for an alternative that's viable, I don't see any reason to look at changing that. I don't think it's a priority, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I think Dash overall works, I think it works very well with the current structure. So I'd be reticent to go tinkering with that until we have more data on that. The proof of stake is still very, the debate's still ongoing there, isn't it? So
yeah.
I don't want Dash to be trailblazing off the edge of a cliff on that one. I like the fact that we've done a lot of firsts in crypto. I like that. That's what's edgy about Dash. That's what makes us one of the best. But I don't think we should be sticking our head above the parapet and looking seriously at proof of stake, removal of mining in favor of proof of stake. I don't see the net benefit of that right now.
Yeah,
that's kind of
that makes sense.
On that.
Well, let's wrap this up with just the last couple of open-ended questions, which you can take a minute or two on, or you can take like 30 minutes on, although people might get not like it to drag on that long. Just basically, what cool stuff is the diff working on now, or is up and coming, or is recently released that you'd like to highlight, or if anything, there might be some stuff you need to be hush-hush about. And then, I forget exactly how I phrased the other one. Let me look that one up. What are some dream investment types that diff would love to pursue someday? Like, you could just, not just like purely open-ended dream space type stuff. So anyway, start with, the first one. What's going on? What's awesome? Shill the diff and the awesome shit that's going on.
The thing is, Joel, as you well know, that there's one thing having lots of awesome stuff going on, and then the other thing is being able to talk about it. And we're in that awkward phase. We've been very busy the first half of this year, 2021, and we believe we've accomplished quite a lot of good stuff. But it's all at various stages, and we all know that the last stage is to announce. So,
well, tell Mark that, huh?
Yeah, well,
too soon.
Indeed. It's one of them where we have to be careful. So there's a really good pipeline. Some of the cool and exciting stuff that we've already done. I think the two standouts for me are Prepay and Valkyrie. I think both stand and have the potential to add tremendous amounts of value to Dash, and vice versa. I think it's
I think it is mutually beneficial in both cases. I think there's a lot of value being created all around with both of those investments. Very difficult to see that from the outside at this stage.
Yeah.
I get that, but as somebody who's on the inside and who's had access to the data and the documents and the financials and the projections and all the other really fascinating stuff that you read before bed.
Puts you right to sleep.
I'm excited about those two in particular. I think there's some good stuff to come. There's some good stuff to come from both, I hope. So that's good stuff that I can talk about.
Yeah.
Dash Retail are doing good things as well. We're really pleased that that was worked through the first half of this year, and that's all been signed off. So we're happy to be an equity holder of that venture, and we see them working so hard on their business and so hard on Dash as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really excited to see what they can do in the future. We already know that they're working on something which is going to again add value to the network. So that's great. Ready Radar, they're doing fantastic. We're getting updates from them periodically, quarterly, and yeah, they're doing well. I can't share any specifics, but yeah, from a business point of view, they're going well. And likewise with Quadency, their latest email to us is full of positives. So that's the stuff that we can talk about really. In terms of stuff that we're working on now and excited about, we've got three deals that we've pretty much closed on now. We're so close to announcing them. I kind of hope that we'd already have made these announcements by the time I came on the podcast, but unfortunately, again, delays. Like with everything, these things take as long as they take. But we hope within a matter of weeks we have 2 to 3 announcements that are going to demonstrate the value that the diff is able to create for the network.
What is this I'm hearing? Is this an announcement of an announcement?
Wow. Yeah.
just pulling your leg there. All right. So the last thing being then, is there an idea of what the absolute dream diff type investment would be? What would be, just something you could say I don't know. That's just super open ended. So figure out what you want it to be and go for it.
I think it all depends on the size of Dash as well. If Dash is,
let's assume the 8-figure one. How about that?
Yeah. If we're in a situation where the diff has many millions of dollars to deploy, there are a lot of bigger projects out there that we just cannot even that we know exist and that we know are going to be household names, and they're going to be big in the space that we can't go there because the amount of money that we have isn't going to be interesting to them. So, but I can't really name names. This is the trouble with what we do because it's sensitive. So, there's the sort of dream investment types. They're high level they're high level integrations into the payment space, the banking sector maybe. I think that's a big area for growth. I think if we can invest in financial services in a big way, I think we need to invest in forward thinking and forward-looking, disruptive companies who are looking to use blockchain technology to disrupt traditional finance models. And yeah, they're the dream investments really, because they're going to change the world. You know, I think one investment that we're looking at, they're disrupting the insurance market, and that's big
Of course.
big potential. Insurance markets are traditionally very profitable. They have strong, loyal customers, and in certain sectors, and they have a very ineffective for the customer, but very, very, very profitable and very easy for the insurance provider. Whereas blockchain can solve those problems with micro insurance, and you can insure anything for seconds, minutes, hours. You know, traditional insurance companies just can't do that. So, and there are a lot of applications for that, especially in the gig economy and stuff like that. There's lots of applications there. So one investment that we're hoping to announce in the coming weeks is in that kind of field. And yeah, you talk about dream investments and things that we're excited about. It's stuff like that, you know. And I just hope that the network gets excited about it as we do, because we believe that these companies have the potential to change their industry. And if they're going to change that, building on Dash and integrating with Dash at ever increasing amounts, then that's got to be good for everybody involved. So yeah, what would we like to invest in someday? Yeah, it's a very, very open question, but the only limit to what the diff can achieve for the network is, it's all down to resource and deployment of that resource effectively. So if we can demonstrate that we're able to do that effectively for the network, I'd like to think that we can keep finding ever bigger deals, and then one day, 10 years down the road from now, you know, the diff in its own right could add billions of dollars of value to the network, and that's value that's there forever. And you can't, you know, Dash as a network, as a cryptocurrency, can never go to zero because it's always going to be underwritten by the value of the Dash Investment Foundation. So yeah, I think that's where the dream is. It's to have an entity that can really serve the network and retain all that value. It's just a big wealth creation machine for the network, wealth generation machine for the network. I think that's what we're trying to do. So
yeah, well, that's a fantastic place to wrap this whole thing up. I will shill for you. dashinvest.org, Dash Investment Foundation. Dash Invests on Twitter. Darren seems to be having a lot of fun with that Twitter account. There's also a Dash Investment Foundation podcast that goes out on the Dash Investment Foundation YouTube channel, but more importantly, Odysee channel, because we don't want to support big evil tech if we can avoid it. Anyway, so how often is the podcast, and what is the schedule for that, as well as the other reports that are on that channel?
Yeah, so basically every couple of weeks, Rodrigo is looking to release a video. It's not set in stone. It all depends on the news flow from the diff as well, to an extent. And what we hope to do with that channel is showcase what we're up to, really. So we'll use it to make announcements. We'll use it to get people or to get representatives from our investment partners on from time to time, and let the CEOs of these companies tell you what they're all about, and straight from the horse's mouth, what they're doing with their companies to change the world. And yeah, I think that's a really really cool thing. So yeah, keep an eye out for the Dash Investment Foundation podcasts. They're going to be fairly regular, and they're going to contain lots of really good stuff around the sorts of companies and the sorts of partners that we're working with. And yeah, and yeah, keep an eye out on the Twitter as well. So yeah, that's kind of the schedule. It'll be coming out. Things will be coming out like that every week or two. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, guess what? It's time to wrap up.
Cool.
I hope you like this. If so, give it a like, share, subscribe, and also comments. I do read the comments afterwards as well. And on Odysee, you can leave hyperchat comments on published videos, not just during the live thing. So if you're listening to this later date, you can always do that, and I'll answer and stuff. And guess what? It's now time for this thing called the after party, which is for some people the highlight of their week, which is good old chat like this, except a bunch of us. It's private. It's not recorded. Don't worry. And the way you get there, you go to the Dash Talk Discord.
At least
server.
we don't think it's recorded.
Well, let's not ruin the mistake. Stuff. You go to, let me type this out over here. You go to staydashy.com, which is a link that gets you into the Dash Talk Discord. Staydashy.com. And then you just start asking around, speakeasy style. Hey, where's the after party? Can you get any after party? All that kind of stuff. And someone will let you in, and I will be on there in just a few minutes, martini in hand, to talk smack about all the good stuff coming up and tell you what I really think, not just what I think is suitable for public consumption. So if you want to join the after party, that's how you do it. We will see you guys in 2 weeks. We got a pretty interesting podcast coming up in a couple of weeks here. So, or next week if you just want the regular crypto agnostic one. But anyway, thanks so much, Mr. Walter / Mike Lewis.
Thank you for having me. Yeah,
yes.
It's been a pleasure and really enjoyed it. So
Pleasure's all mine. See you guys later.